So welcome, 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 our beloved brother Kizito. I appreciate your leadership, your diligence, your tenacity, and all that you do for so many. As always, at Setsi, we begin by acknowledging the original stewards of the various lands we're on. We give thanks to our ancestors, to our creator, to all our elders and community stalwarts whose shoulders we stand on as we build, share, and learn together for our collective liberation and sovereignty. So, my beloved brother, please introduce yourselves to our listeners and viewers and share a bit about your remarkable work.
Thank you so much for having me, my brother. My name is Kizito, as you said. I'm the executive director and the founder of the Rwanda Canadian Healing Ctr. We're based here in Toronto, downtown. And we've been doing work around mental health, raising awareness on mental health. Initially, we started with the work around providing training and personal development, community development, which was our inaugural project in 2019. As of recent, we've been working on affordable housing. We've just released a model for African Canadians called African Canadian Affordable Housing Model, Affordable Housing Village Model, which is intended to create a village within the city or anywhere where we have our people. As you know, most our people are known to be connected. Our people love to know one another, and we are looking to create ways for that experience to be there for them here in Canada. So our model kind of delivers that, and we are hoping very soon to allocate to find a land to actually implement that model. But in addition to that, we've been working on the recent crisis, the current ongoing crisis for refugee and asylum seekers in the city of Toronto, where we've been raising awareness, bringing groups together, but also finding places for our people to sleep, especially right now when it's getting cold. We're still pushing while we wait for the government to do the right thing, and hopefully we hope to hear from them soon, because really any day now we could hear one or two people has passed as a result. We've had a lot of cases where people are getting sick. Our churches have sent people to hospitals, and we're still, again, as I said, we're still waiting for whether it's the city, the province, the federal government to give us a tangible solution that actually answers for all, not just a few people that they're able to respond to or take to places like Windsor. We've had people taken to Cornwall. We've had people taken to Niagara Falls. But again, it doesn't solve the problem because people are coming in every day.
That's very helpful. I appreciate all the context and all the remarkable work that the Rwanda Canadian Healing Ctr is doing. And I'm inspired by you and your entire team and your diligence. In terms of self-determination and doing for self, it's clear that you have a passion and vigor for this work. And obviously it stems from some of the trauma that you expressed to me around your background. I know that myself, my wife, one of the very first, I think the very first movie we ever watched as a couple 20 years ago was Hotel Rwanda. And your experience and trauma as a young person coming to Canada, and having to build an organization that's doing such remarkable work should be applauded, but also should be supported. So I'd love to hear a bit about what's inspiring you about your work and some of the roots of your work in terms of mental health and trauma.
And thank you for that. I want to profess to you that I haven't watched the movie Hotel Rwanda. When that movie came out, I think 2006. I went to the theater to watch it, and my friends, and these are friends that are also Burundians, so they understand our experience very closely. But I told them I can't watch it, and I left theaters. And at that time, I was not aware of what would occur very soon after that, which was I went through my own PTSD as a result of the genocide against Tutsis. So I was born in Rwanda. I lived through the genocide against Tutsis, and I left Rwanda 97. And I was in Kenya for 4 years and then came to Canada in 2000, went to school here, worked here, really felt like I was becoming a part of the Canadian society. But later on in life, I developed trauma. I'm trying to think of the particular word that I'm trying to say, that I went through anxieties. For 3 years, I contemplated committing suicide, and I was able to overcome that. I overcame that, funny enough, by basically saying, you know what, you're not strong enough to kill yourself, so you got to find something else to do. And it's within that I was able to start doing research, both looking at our history as Africans, my history as a Rwandan, as an African, and basically diving into that. I became a vegan, which helped me to actually start thinking beyond the craziness that was going on in my head. And that cleared my head a little bit to start thinking about, okay, what can I actually do? I remember in 2008 or so, when I graduated from film school, I was about to do a documentary on Romeo Dallaire, who was the general that was heading the UN army, the UN soldiers in Rwanda, and he was going through his own trauma. So I was basically researching him to do a documentary on him, and that's when I realized, that's when it hit me that I was actually going through my own PTSD withdrawals. And so it went from doing research on him and started doing research on myself. And from that, basically, I went deep and deeper. But of course, the deeper I went, the severe my depression and anxieties got. But eventually, I overcame. When I overcame it around 2012 or so, is when I started raising awareness on what I had gone through, because I knew my community was going through it. And really starting to connect with my community and finding out what can I do to make sure that our people start talking about it. Because what I realized at the time is, once I started talking about what I was going through, it was almost like, wait, how come nobody told me this is actually part of the, like, once you start talking about it, you start healing, or at least the severity of it goes away. So I really started encouraging people, and part of doing that is I planned a walk from Toronto to Montreal. So I was planning to go back home for the first time in 20 years, but I didn't want to just go back. I wanted to sort of create a symbolic demonstration of, okay, this is part of my healing journey. So I built a ricochet that there was a demonstration of all of the weight and the wounds that I was carrying. And I pulled a ricochet from November of 2016, November 24th, 2016 to December 11, obviously the same year. I went through winter, through cold, pulling every day. And my community was with me throughout. And yeah, so it was the most beautiful thing so far, other than my marriage, which I just had in August. This journey was the second best thing I've ever done in my life. So I went to Rwanda right after, and then I came back in 2017 and launched the organization in 2018. And ever since, we've been doing work around healing, providing learning on both trauma, but also other form of personal community development, and raising awareness for community issues, and providing capacity for our community members, providing space. For example, this year we've had our community use our space almost every weekend. We're able to host a community group to come here at our office and use the space for various different activities. We've also, as I just mentioned, we've been working on affordable housing. As obviously, as you know, we are going through a crisis in Canada, but also for us, it's about getting to the goal, to our mission of building a healing center for our community, where we can bring our people, get them to heal both mentally, physically, spiritually. And again, as I mentioned, we're also dealing with the asylum seeker issue. Really, for us, the particular thing that we want to provide is resources for our community. It's providing a platform for our community to be able to feel like they're at home. They can now get to work on doing the healing work that they need to do. So whether it's housing, whether it's the space, whether it's media spaces that we've initiated during COVID, all of that is meant to create space. For example, right now I'm sitting in an office, but it's really a studio. And we developed that with the support of the government to be able to bring community members to come and tell this, whether it's through podcasts or whatever form they want to. So we are really glad and happy to be here. But it's just the beginning. There's so much to do, and we can't wait to continue to push. And hopefully, I always say, if what I can do is do my part in this life, and I'm happy to do so.
That's absolutely remarkable, my brother. I appreciate your candor, your transparency, your vulnerability, your authenticity, and your clear demonstration of leadership. We really appreciate you and everything you're doing for so many. Your space at 117 Peter Street is a vibrant, buzzing space, as you said, every weekend. and that shows the genuine community development and community economic development that's manifesting within your organization and being actualized through your work and the work of you and your colleagues. So once again, thank you. My next question is around specifically the stigma related to mental health and mental well-being in our communities many times. And obviously, I'd love to dive deeper into CMHC has never had a very strong relationship with the Black community. And you being able to, in 2022, being able to pull off resources to engage and build a healing center and develop a partnership with a crown corp or a federal entity of that nature, I think is truly remarkable. Well, I'd love to hear the vision and how we can support and contribute, and honestly, just to applaud you for once again another major step towards some level of sovereignty and liberation for our people and for our community in the form of healing and community collective activism.
So it's really, even for us, it's been surprising because my background is film. I went to film school. That's where I'm coming from. So other than my experience, other than my trauma experience, I wouldn't be here. And so a lot of what I'm finding out is just because we are pushing and we are doing our best to get to our goal. And so in 2021, I believe, CMHC put out a call. They wanted to meet with different African and Black group leaders who are interested in doing housing. And I was invited, our organization was invited. And of course, for us, it was, we're always like healing center. But when they made the presentation around affordable housing, and we basically, the only thing we wanted to find out was, if we do affordable housing, are we able to put in our healing center into that? And I don't know if your audience know, but CMHC, with their principal funding, if you get a loan from them, you're able to use the 30% to build whatever you want within that, whether it's a community center or whatever. So for us, the idea is to put the healing center, use that 30% to put the healing center. So once they say yes to that, we were in. We submitted, so we were in on the vision in providing affordable housing, but also we started looking within CMHC for opportunities. And one of the opportunities was Solutions Lab. Solutions Lab is a very competitive program, but we were determined, as we always are, to get it. And so we hired, we went through, so part of the process for CMHC is you have to hire their consultants, or you have to find consultants that they approve. So we went through all of their consultants and did interviews with all of them. We went through the process. We made sure that we hired the right consultant for us that understood what we were trying to do, that really wanted to work with us to develop capacity for us. And so we submitted a grant, and we luckily enough, we got, within 3 months, we got a call, basically being told that we were approved. And for the last 10 months, we were working on the model. We spoke to at least 250 individuals, because we did focus groups every other week, maybe. So we spoke to about 250 individuals. We've promoted our model as a part of the process. We promoted it to at least 1,000 people, because I'm always speaking at different engagements, and I'm always sharing the information about the model. And we got a lot of feedback about how the African community wanted the affordable housing to look like. So we originally proposed it as a multi-generational affordable housing, but we did know, we understand that. We know based on research that most African Canadians, most African families within Canada are multi-generational. But we wanted to go deeper, understand, what does that mean? What does that mean in terms of actually building the community that the African communities can feel and have a sense of belonging? And that's where the village model comes from. This is the Africans basically telling us, we want to have that sense of connectedness, that sense of, I have everything I need, I just need to go to work. But when I come to my community, when I come to my home, I want to feel like I'm going to my community. So that's what we are looking to build. We want to build communities. Our model has two concepts. It has a mini village concept and what we call ultimate village concept. We might come up with a better name in the future, but basically what that means is the mini village is anything under 1,000 units, and the actual ultimate village is anything above 1,000 units. And the reason why we call it the ultimate, because that's where we're headed. That's what we are looking to build. We want to build a village where we can have everything we propose in our model in one place. We want to be the developers of all those things, whereas for the mini village, for example, where our office is right now, if we were to build our affordable housing here, we can start looking at what's available and then sort of take it away from our budget because it's already taken care of. It's in the neighborhood. For the ultimate village, we want to go to a place where we can actually build everything ourselves. So basically, we think we can get to that goal within 7 to 10 years for the ultimate village. The mini village, we are very determined to see if we can have something developed within the next 3 years. Of course, bearing that we are working with the city to see if they can provide the land. If they don't give us the land, we're gonna fundraise on our own. So the question you asked is how can you help? One of the challenges right now is finding land. If we can secure land, a donation or something of that form, it will be very helpful for us and our initiative. Preferably within the GTA, even better within Toronto. We understand Toronto is a tough market, but that's right now the biggest challenge that we're having. And of course, we've had promises from the city. Of course, we've had many other groups that are interested, but nobody has yet to tell us when that land is going to be available. So right now, as we speak, actually, CMHC, my team and I were looking at because CMHC has expressed extending our not extending, but giving us a top up to the grant they gave us. And what we're looking at is proposing something to support the land work that we're doing. So whether it's an impact model that we need to develop so we can actually raise money on our own, or just continue to leverage our networks. But that's really the main crucial challenge that we're facing. Otherwise, the grants are available for us so long as we have the land, and we are that's where we need to be able to secure that and then move to the next step, which is to do the performers, submit proposals and put a shovel in the ground.
Ashe. Well, folks, you heard it here first. The African Canadian Affordable Housing Village model is on the move, and they're seeking land, and you have resources. And I think I always believe in the 3 R's: resources, relationships, and reciprocity. And hopefully we'll be able to build that here through our listeners and viewers. And more importantly, I think a lot of times when we look at land acquisition in Toronto, it's very challenging. You have folks in the philanthropic and public sectors that have been trying for almost a decade, even longer, to secure land for affordable housing and for various purposes, food sovereignty, food initiatives, but sometimes they're being outbid 3 to 1 by private sector actors. So I think a lot of times what I'm interested in is finding ways and means to have movements connect. There's folks in the food security, food sovereignty, land access movements that are really trying to ensure that we have safe, holistic, nutritious food being cultivated and grown in Toronto, in Ontario, in Canada. And that movement is thriving. There's some incredible in that movement. I'm part of the Ecological Farmers Association of Ontario. I'm Elder Zola Anan, Anan Loli at the African Food Baskets and the Black.
That's my elder, yes.
Yeah. And then you have folks in the social purpose real estate space, like Graham Singh from Trinity Centers and folks in the United Church of Canada. There's reports that speak to $500 billion worth of Christian real estate sitting dormant across Turtle Island, across North America. And then you have folks that are doing affordable housing. So I'm always interested in seeing how folks in affordable housing, social purpose real estate, and food sovereignty movements can connect to find ways to create real movements around land acquisition that will actually create community wealth building and community economic development. So once again, I applaud you for your leadership. I applaud you for your diligence, your tenacity. And if a listener or viewer is listening or viewing this, and has the ability to support, we're going to make sure that we put your contact information in the bio as well on the screen.
Yeah, even before you go to your question, definitely would love. I know Elder Anan and I were part of a retreat, and I've been looking forward to connect with him. But right now, that's where we are. If we can find a way to connect and build with those groups, it's easier. And in our model, that's actually what we're looking to do. Like we have, for example, we have our own farming as a part of the community kitchen. So that takes care of that. So we can find a way to create those partnerships and then preferably do it within the GTA because most of our people work here. Most of our people are in this space. So you don't want to go solve a problem outside of where the actual community is. we would love to do that. So hopefully maybe that's something we can do, connect with those people. But Elder Anand, for sure, I do look forward to having this discussion with him.
Absolutely, absolutely. My next question is specifically around African asylum seekers and the work that you've been doing. There has been a lot of contention and a lot of determination and leadership in this space. And I know that you and many others have been really pressing diligently the city of Toronto, the provincial government, the federal government, and members of the Black community to stand up and to find ways and means to support those that are in a very vulnerable and distinct position right now. Could you share a little bit about the work happening on the ground and how folks can support and contribute?
Man, so this one is a tough one because there's so many moving pieces on that. But maybe I want to take you back to when we initially started having this problem. So I happen to be, our office happens to be across from 129, and 129 happens to be where people are being sent since June 1st, 129 Peter Street. So right now I'm looking across from that. That space, and so we started seeing numbers rise every day from June 1st all the way to a point where I started wondering, because again, we are not, my organization is not really, our mandate is not to specifically migrants or asylum seekers. We are more in mental health and resource and kind of building resources for the community. So this is new to us. But we had to respond. I personally had to respond because it seemed like no one was paying attention. So during the mayoral campaign, we began going around and talking to candidates, basically saying, "What are you going to do?" We have numbers of Africans. That's what was shocking is everybody was Black and African. I didn't know at first. I thought it was like Haitians, and because I'm thinking they're coming from the south and just coming in, walking through. But what we found out later was most of them were Africans, Ugandans, Nigerians, Kenyans, Tanzanians. And so we were like, how did this happen? But two, what are you going to do? And I remember asking this question to then mayoral candidate Olivia Chow. And the promise she made to us was, once I'm elected, I'm going to call you, all of you, to find a solution. And she did that. She called us the week of July 11, I believe, around this issue. We talked about what was going on, kind of, talking to migrant and refugee groups, and basically educating her on what needed to be done. And one of the initiatives that we took from that meeting was we needed to do a press conference. And my organization was tasked to do that. So we organized the press conference, worked with various groups from the city of Toronto, and we had a successful press conference. And from that is when the announcement for $200 or so million was made by the federal government, of which $97 million was to come to the city of Toronto. What's crazy, what's funny, what most people might not know today is that the city of Toronto has yet to receive that money. Those funds have yet to come to the city of Toronto's hands. So that's an issue on itself. The other thing that people do not know, whether or not the money was kidnapped or not, is the money was to pay the bills, the expense fund, the expense budget that the city has already gone January to June. So the federal government made that look like they were paying for what we were just asking for, campaigning or advocating for, but it was really for them to pay for the money that the city had already spent for the previous 6 months, which left us again empty-handed. Which, of course, when the thing that worked for us is when we did the press conference, some churches raised their hand and they wanted to help, and that's why we were able to take people into churches. Black groups stepped up. We worked with PTRAT, which is made up of various organizations. We know Margaret, Diane, Walter, and others. Groups like BOF, NAPSI, and others have stepped up. FFBC have stepped up with funds to those different organizations that are responding on the ground. So we've been able to maintain, horrific as it is, we've been able to maintain those temporary shelters or temporary, I don't even know what to call it, because when you go there, you know that that's just not right. Toronto, Canada, that should never happen. But it's better than them sleeping on the street. So, for example, yesterday, we had about 50 people at 129 Peter. I wasn't able to come here, but there's another group of faith leaders that have been pushing. We've been working with them as well. And they basically came on the street yesterday and they were like, you need to let these people in. The city badged and they allowed them in to sleep inside. But I this morning I came by and they are still outside. So we are still facing this issue. We know one of our churches is shutting down right now as we speak. The Dominion Church is shutting down as of November 1st. That is tomorrow. We know that Pilgrim Church is overwhelmed. They are upwards of 250 people now as we speak. People are sleeping on the ground. It's a mess. We have a Ugandan Muslim church that's also been hosting at least 50 people. They haven't received even a dime from the city. The only amount that I'm aware of that these churches have received is the 150 that the city of Toronto provided initially. And then there was another 100,000 each, one to Pilgrim and another to Dominion Church. But even that happened because we pushed. I actually remember Dominion Church was running out of money for food. And I had to send an email. So this is, for me, I just blast an email out when I am angry. I don't try to send it to individuals. I go to everybody because I'm trying to find out who has a solution. So I blasted an email, and initially the next morning, the city, I remember the city decided to fund those two churches immediately, send them money. That also took at least a week. That's the thing with the city, everything is bureaucratic. Everything is, even if somebody's dying on the street, they find a way to bureaucratize it by basically going through a process. So right now, for example, there has been 750 that was released, of which the 200 was given initially. The rest, 550,000, they decided to turn it into a grant. The churches on the ground need money right away, but they decided to turn it into a grant, and the decision is not going to be made until November 6th. So all this time, the city is just sitting on money so they can go through a grant. You know who's doing the work on the ground. You know where the money is needed the most, but no, let's go create a grant. For what? But this is what we're dealing with on the ground. The frustration within the city staff is crazy. We have the leadership that's willing and that's really been working with us, but the bureaucracy is just for us. I actually and I think I started saying this as of yesterday. Our challenge is not a housing. The crisis we're in is not a housing crisis. It's not a homeless crisis. It's not even an asylum seeker or refugee crisis. Our crisis is bureaucratic. We just have a bureaucracy across Canada that's not understanding that we need to act and act quickly. They are just more interested in making sure, oh, how about this? How about that? Like, nobody understands that the times have changed and maybe somebody needs to take charge and just act on a whim and look at these other pieces when we get there. No, everything has to be, you gotta go through 10 people to make a decision. And those of us that are on the ground are like, yeah, these people don't care, because that's what you're showing to us. Because guess what? When a Ukrainian issue comes up, they don't do that. The Ukrainians come in like this. Like right now, we have a policy that says we are going to be receiving at least 1 million Ukrainians in the next couple of years. They are coming in with permanent residency. Nobody's saying, oh, how is this going to get done? No, they just did it. But when it's Black people, we find a way, or when it's marginalized people, because it's really also the homeless people in Toronto have been going through this. When it's marginalized groups, we find a way to excuse all of the bureaucratic processes that we create and we have to go through. So it's been really disappointing. Right now, as we speak again, what we're looking at, and it's tough because we are not even prepared to raise money. That's how bad these groups are set up. We don't even have an infrastructure to raise money. So when you ask, how can people help? We need money. But some people are like, oh, so where do we send money in order to get a donation receipt? And I was talking to the churches. We are not ready to. We don't even have a button on the websites of the churches because this is not what they do. So it's something that we've been going through to the point where people who are looking to help us are looking at us and like, you guys are not serious. But like, why are you blaming us? We are just doing our best. This is not what we do. Usually organizations take time to set these things up. We're not in the business of responding urgently, which is something we're looking to do, by the way. Moving forward, we want to establish and this is some of what I've been talking to the city and others about, is creating capacity for our community to respond on our own. You know, if the governments are not going to respond on our behalf, the least they can do is fund us to build capacity. So when something like this happens again in the future, we can actually respond without needing their help. So that's what I'm pushing forward. Some of the funds that I've been requesting for include that, because we want to make sure that we can create that as a group. But in the meantime, yeah, we still need a lot of funding. We are looking for more space, more churches to house more people, because again, some churches are closing down. We are getting overflows on the street. Winter is here. Yeah, it's just still a headache, and the feds don't seem to care. The city seems to be like, you gotta talk to the feds. We don't have any money, and we're just kind of left stranded, pretty much.
It's appalling to hear that. And definitely, I understand completely. Navigating bureaucracy is not just frustrating. Sometimes it's tragic, because the level of responsivity that's required and diligence and leadership needs to be bold and decisive. I'm definitely excited to see some of the infrastructure that's emerged. Like, I know that I've been keeping up to date around the work, Brother Liban and FFBC, Craig Welling, Black Opportunities Fund, Elder Emmanuel Melees, and NABC, Cheryl Case, and CV Planning, Diane, and others. So the Black and African infrastructure that requires support, I think, is being deployed and is being supported. Once again, a lot of these organizations are nascent and newer organizations, and they weren't built to handle humanitarian crises.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, and
time.
Yeah.
You know
what I mean? But so, they're stepping up and
stepping up, absolutely.
Honestly, like I don't know what we would have done without the leadership within the Black community, which is good, and we appreciate it, and that means we are getting somewhere as a society here. But as far as the city, as far as the government, man, I don't know what to say. Part of it is, for me, I think they do not care enough. I think if it was a white community that's going through this, that's again the affluent white community, because there's a lot of white homeless people in Toronto. It's more your status, it's your class, where you're coming from. I think if it was one of those communities, they would have responded and responded with money and even speak on our behalf. But a lot of the time, you find that we're doing the work on our own. Honestly, the feds have pretty much done this, you know, and so we are continuing to push at that level, but we haven't had anything other than, oh, we've sent you the money, and then that money hasn't even arrived yet. So very disingenuous, but hey, just politics, I guess.
Well, listen, I applaud you for your advocacy, your activism, your leadership, and your fortitude. And if there's any way that we contribute or support, please feel free. You know, we're an email away, a WhatsApp away. We're able to mobilize, to organize, and we're standing with you. And once again, as I mentioned, there's leaders that have stepped up in phenomenal ways, and we applaud you and all of them on behalf of so many. Thank you. So I'm down to my second last question, my beloved brother. What is your ultimate goal, and what does success look like to you and your colleagues?
In which way? It's for the organization, success is obviously achieving the ultimate goal, having a healing center, having a home for our community here in Canada. But for the African community, it's really the village. It's having a village. You've heard of Italian towns, you've heard of Portuguese town, you've heard of Greek towns, you've heard of China towns. We want to achieve a similar goal for our community, for the African community, and you could even expand it and say the Black community. So that's my goal for myself, for the organization, but also I believe for the community. Being able to be self-sufficient, leaving the future generation, our children and their children, more than what we found, and really, like, this is one thing I've always said to my people, and I really challenge them. If we are going to be here, if we want our children to be here, then we need to start acting differently. The infrastructure says a lot about whether you mean what you mean to do and where you mean to be as a community. And so far, our community has demonstrated that they would rather retire somewhere else, even though you're leaving your children here, where is the infrastructure that you're leaving behind? Not your house, not your car, none of that. I mean an infrastructure that's shared communally. So that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for us to leave a level of infrastructure that our future generations can look at and say, yeah, they didn't think about themselves, they thought about us. Because that's how I live my life. I always think about what can I do that's going to influence my future generation in 2 to 1,000 years down the road. And I think if we can all think that way, we'll eliminate so many of our internal issues as a community, and we will all look forward to a community that we all share, that we're going to share. Because who's going to care about the beef that you and I had 100 years from now? Nobody. But they will care to know, oh, you and I came together and initiated something that they are now able to benefit from as a result of what we did. So definitely communities, building villages, and eventually, hopefully, who knows, cities.
Ashe, amen, amen.
Yeah.
Beautifully said, my brother. Who will care about trivia 100 years from now? No one. They'll care about what we
Nobody.
built. That 7 generation thinking is what we need. So I so appreciate the intellectual abundance, intellectual property, your wisdom, your lived experience, your social location, and all the candor and transparency, vulnerability, and leadership that you shared so openly and freely throughout this conversation. And we'll close this interview that began by acknowledging our creator, by acknowledging the original stewards of the various lands we're on. We acknowledge all our ancestors. We acknowledge all those who toiled without compassion or compensation. We acknowledge all the elders and community stalwarts whose shoulders we stand on as we share, build, and learn together for our collective liberation and sovereignty. Thank you so much, my beloved brother, for all that you do.
Thank you.
God bless you.
Thank you so much. Much appreciated.